Imagine a car sitting quietly in a tow yard, parked between dozens of others, unnoticed, untouched, ignored. Days pass. Workers walk by. Officers walk by. No one looks inside. Because why would they? It's just another car, right? But inside this one, something unimaginable was waiting. And once it was found, nothing in the investigation would ever make sense again. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. This is the story of Celeste Rivas-Hernandez, a teenager whose life ended far too soon, and whose discovery would ignite one of Los Angeles's most confusing and controversial investigations. A case filled with unanswered questions, conflicting reports, and a timeline that still haunts investigators today. On the surface, the story begins on a quiet September morning in Los Angeles. The kind of heat that sticks to the skin was already spreading across the Hollywood Hills. Residents on a winding residential street noticed something small, something subtle. A car parked awkwardly near a curb. Not blocking, not striking, just off. A black Tesla sitting where it normally shouldn't. In most neighborhoods, this wouldn't raise an eyebrow. But the Hollywood Hills aren't most neighborhoods. Here, residents know their streets. They know their cars. They notice when something doesn't belong. And this Tesla didn't belong. A complaint went in. Parking enforcement arrived. Officers chalked the tires, marked the time, and left. Hours passed. The vehicle stayed. A return visit followed, then a tow notice. Again, routine. Nothing unusual. Nothing suspicious. Nothing that suggested the nightmare inside. A towing crew hooked the Tesla, lifted it gently, and hauled it away to the city impound lot. Workers logged it, tagged it, parked it between two other cars. And just like that, this vehicle, later revealed to be registered to musician David Anthony Burke, better known as the artist d4vd, disappeared into the mass of other towed cars waiting to be reclaimed. For days, no one opened the door. No one had a reason to. No one expected what was inside. It wasn't until September 8, 2025, that everything changed. An employee walking between cars caught a smell, faint but wrong. At first, he assumed it was from trash or something spilled. Tow yards aren't meant to smell pleasant. But this was different. Sharp, heavy, biological. He followed it, step after step, until he stopped beside the Tesla. He leaned in, paused, backed up, looked again. The smell was coming from the vehicle. He radioed a supervisor. The supervisor radioed LAPD. And within minutes, officers arrived, sealed off the lane, approached the car, and prepared themselves for what experience told them they might find. An officer opened the door, and the investigation into the death of Celeste Rivas-Hernandez officially began. The body found inside the Tesla was confirmed to be Celeste's, a teenager whose name would soon appear across national headlines. But in the first moments after discovering her remains, investigators had almost nothing to work with. She had not been reported missing in any way that tied directly to the scene. There was no immediate timeline, no witnesses, no public video, no phone call, no family member physically on the scene to guide the earliest steps. Only a car, a registration name, a teen whose life had been cut short, and 100 questions investigators had no answers to. Within hours, the tow yard transformed into a command center. Technicians photographed every inch of the car. Evidence bags piled up. The vehicle itself was wrapped, lifted onto a flatbed, and taken to a secure LAPD facility for a deeper forensic search. But as the investigation began, a complication surfaced. One that would define the entire case. Almost all early information available to the public came from anonymous law enforcement sources speaking to the media. Reporters from major outlets were publishing fast-moving updates. Some articles stated the body was dismembered. Others reported decomposition. Some said the case was being treated as a homicide. Others said the medical examiner had not released a cause or manner of death. These contradictions didn't mean the case was mishandled. It meant the investigation was tightly sealed, and leaks were all anyone had. Publicly, LAPD said very little. Privately, someone within the system was talking. This created another problem: confusion. There were conflicting reports about Celeste's age. Some outlets said 14, others 15. Some articles referenced a homicide investigation, while others emphasized that the medical examiner had not confirmed homicide. The information was scattered, incomplete, and often contradictory. For Celeste's family, this meant a nightmare, not only grieving the unimaginable, but confronting a media storm filled with different versions of her last days. But there was one detail that turned the public's attention sharply. The Tesla was registered to musician and public figure David Anthony Burke, known worldwide as d4vd. Immediately, the story changed. It wasn't just a tragedy. It was a tragedy linked to a celebrity. The headlines came fast. Body found in Tesla registered to musician. Teen discovered in car linked to artist. Investigation focuses on vehicle owned by. And while no one had been publicly named a suspect, anonymous law enforcement sources told reporters that Burke was a person of interest, a term that doesn't confirm guilt, but does confirm attention. His name became central to the public conversation, even though LAPD had not issued a formal statement identifying any suspect. This tension between leaked information and official silence would shape the entire investigation. In these earliest days, investigators worked to reconstruct a timeline. They needed to know, when was the Tesla parked in the Hollywood Hills? Who parked it there? Was Celeste already inside at the time? Did anyone see the driver leave? Were any cameras in the area recording? The neighborhood was known for home security systems, ring cameras, vehicle plate readers, private surveillance. Detectives canvassed the area. They knocked on doors. They requested footage. But retrieving usable video meant sorting through hundreds of hours of recordings. Meanwhile, forensic teams analyzed the vehicle itself. They examined touch DNA, fingerprints, hair fibers, clothing remnants, the condition of the interior, and any personal items inside. None of these details were publicly released, but internal analysis of the vehicle would become a key turning point later in the investigation. As the first 48 hours passed, one theme emerged behind the scenes. Investigators believed more than one person might have been involved in disposing of Celeste's body. Again, this information came not from official LAPD press conferences, but from anonymous sources speaking to multiple news outlets. It was described cautiously as a possibility, nothing confirmed, nothing stated with certainty. But it suggested something important. Detectives were beginning to see this case not as a simple scenario, but as a complex puzzle with multiple moving pieces. Still, for all their developing theories, they were missing something critical. How did Celeste end up in that car? And who left the Tesla on that quiet street in the Hollywood Hills? Those two questions would define the next stage of the investigation. And as detectives pulled surveillance footage, tracked the Tesla's movements, and began interviewing individuals connected to the vehicle, a new piece of information surfaced. One that would shift the entire direction of the case. A detail investigators could not ignore. A detail that would pull them deeper into a tangled, unsettling timeline. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. For a brief moment after Celeste's disappearance, people believed this was just another runaway case. A teenager overwhelmed, stressed, needing space. Her age made the assumption easy. But as the days stretched into weeks and the silence around her location deepened, something became painfully clear. Celeste wasn't hiding. She was gone. And when her remains were finally identified, the investigation didn't calm down. It exploded. Because while detectives worked through the facts, the rest of the world focused on one question. Who was David? When investigators began reconstructing Celeste's social circle, one detail kept resurfacing. Someone close to her, someone she trusted, someone she reportedly called her partner, a man named David. It was Celeste's mother who confirmed the first chilling connection. Her daughter's last known partner had the same name as the rising music artist known as d4vd, whose real name is David Anthony Burke. At first, it seemed like wild internet speculation. People assumed it was a coincidence. After all, David is a common name, and sudden assumptions could derail an already fragile investigation. But the internet didn't slow down. It accelerated. Fans, curious onlookers, and amateur sleuths began comparing photos, screenshots, old clips, and concert videos. And the deeper they dug, the more their suspicions grew. Someone found a video where a girl who looked strikingly similar to Celeste appeared next to the artist. Another user posted screenshots where the two reportedly interacted online. Soon, whispers turned to certainty, at least in the public's eyes. This wasn't a random link. And then came the matching tattoos. Multiple outlets reported the same detail. Celeste and David Burke shared matching tattoos on the right index finger. The tattoo was simple but personal, 2 words written in thin, delicate script. Shoo! It didn't take long for that tattoo to become symbolic. The internet saw it as something intimate, something shared between people who were more than casual acquaintances, something deliberate. Investigators didn't publicly confirm whether the tattoo held legal significance, but the public had already connected the dots. A girl found deceased, a tattoo shared with a rising musician, a timeline that suddenly didn't feel random. This was no longer just a missing person case. This was something else. And as journalists dug deeper, another set of events unfolded hundreds of miles away. Events that signaled something was happening behind the scenes. Even before the investigation reached its later stages, David Burke's public life began to unravel. Immediately after news outlets reported the connection between Celeste and the singer, his team quietly began making changes. Shows were canceled. Tour stops vanished from his website. The highly anticipated deluxe release of his album, Withered, suddenly went dark. Then brands reacted. Crocs removed his content from their collaborations. Hollister followed suit. Other partners reportedly paused future projects. In the entertainment world, where reputation is everything, these withdrawals weren't just business decisions. They were signs of impact. Signs that companies saw risk. Signs that the world was watching. And just as his public presence began collapsing, something far more serious happened back in Los Angeles. On September 17th, the case took a dramatic turn. LAPD executed a search warrant at a property connected to Burke, located in the Hollywood Hills. Detectives seized multiple items, including computers. This raid marked a shift from speculation to operation. For investigators to take that step, they needed justification, something that tied the property or what was inside it to the timeline of Celeste's disappearance. What raised even more eyebrows was the location. The house was near the spot where the Tesla had been parked before police impounded it. 2 events, 1 neighborhood, 1 unanswered question. Why was the vehicle linked to Celeste sitting so close to a property connected to the artist? Investigators didn't give answers, and they didn't need to. Their actions spoke loudly enough. From the outside, the legal situation looked like 2 parallel worlds. On one side, Burke's representatives insisted he was cooperating with authorities. They emphasized communication, transparency, willingness to assist. But within days, a conflicting report surfaced from ABC7. Some sources claimed the artist was not cooperating, contradicting the narrative from his PR team. It raised a disturbing possibility. If the statements didn't align, then who was telling the truth, and why? Meanwhile, Celeste's family grieved quietly, navigating a nightmare no mother should ever endure while strangers online dissected her daughter's life. Yet even through grief, they stood firm. They wanted answers. They wanted truth. They wanted justice. As if the investigation wasn't already tangled enough, fans uncovered something that deepened the mystery. A rumored unreleased track, allegedly titled Celeste. Some listeners claimed snippets existed, fragments where the lyrics referenced tattoos, closeness, absence, and emotional distance. A few claimed the song was recorded before Celeste disappeared. Nothing about the track was officially confirmed. No release, no statement, no public acknowledgement. But rumors have power. And in a case already fueled by emotional intensity and online speculation, the idea of a song with her name attached added fuel to an already burning fire. Suddenly, the question wasn't just whether they knew each other. The question became, how deep did their connection go? By now, detectives were working on multiple fronts. The car, the timeline, the digital evidence seized in the raid, Celeste's social connections, every location she visited in her final days. The media speculated about motives. Fans speculated about secrets. Critics speculated about cover-ups. But investigators focused on facts. And every fact pointed to one conclusion. Celeste's disappearance wasn't a random tragedy. Someone knew something. Someone saw something. Someone was involved. But then came the most jarring moment of all. After weeks of public discussion, online accusations, and mounting evidence, after talk of tattoos, raids, and connections, after all the focus on speculation, the medical examiner made an announcement, one that stunned the public, one that shifted the narrative completely, one that left even investigators frustrated. Despite everything, the condition of the car, the location of the remains, the digital trail, the timeline, the connections, the medical examiner could not determine how Celeste died. No cause of death, no definitive answer, just a void. And that void forced investigators to rely on the last place anyone expected: the secrets hidden inside the Tesla. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. By mid-September, public curiosity had reached a fever pitch. Every new article, every post on social media, added layers of speculation. News outlets ran repeated timelines of Celeste's final hours, while fan forums debated the connection to the rising artist David Anthony Burke, better known as d4vd. Yet, despite the attention, the most critical detail remained frustratingly elusive: her cause of death. When the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's office issued her death certificate, the entry stunned even seasoned reporters. Under the cause of death field, it read, "deferred." Those words were not a clerical error. They were a technical term used by medical examiners to indicate that the investigation required further testing and analysis before a cause could be definitively determined. The process was painstaking. Determining cause and manner of death in cases like Celeste's involved complex procedures, including detailed toxicology screening, tissue sampling, and microscopic examination of organ systems. It wasn't simply a matter of looking for trauma. Forensic pathologists had to rule out a wide range of possibilities: accidental overdose, natural causes, foul play, or other external factors. Each test could take weeks, sometimes months, before results were conclusive. Toxicology, in particular, became a central point of public discussion. Officials confirmed that lab results were pending, and the absence of those results meant that authorities could not yet declare Celeste's death a homicide. At the same time, law enforcement confirmed that while criminal culpability was suspected, the only element officially confirmed at that stage was the concealment of her body. The delay frustrated family, friends, and the public alike. Each passing day without concrete answers fueled speculation, conspiracy theories, and intense media scrutiny. Investigators focused not only on cause of death, but also on the timeline surrounding her disappearance. The Tesla linked to Celeste had been parked on a Hollywood Hills street for weeks before it was finally towed and processed by police. This timeline raised troubling questions. Did she die long before her body was discovered on September 8th? Could her death have occurred even before her birthday, the day prior? Each of these questions weighed heavily on detectives. The longer a body remains hidden, the more challenging it becomes to pinpoint not just cause, but also how circumstances unfolded. Meanwhile, the LAPD's robbery-homicide division intensified their investigation. The search of d4vd's home in the Hollywood Hills was only the beginning. Sources confirmed that officers had seized a range of electronics: laptops, smartphones, external hard drives, and other devices. Detectives were looking for digital breadcrumbs, texts, GPS logs, social media messages, and other data that could reveal the timeline of Celeste's last hours. Every ping, every sent message, every deleted file could potentially shed light on who Celeste was with, where she traveled, and how she ultimately ended up in the Tesla. At the same time, authorities were aware of the public and media scrutiny. The case had become a viral phenomenon, and anything released could impact ongoing investigations. This forced detectives to move cautiously, releasing only verified information, while keeping the most sensitive discoveries out of public view. Outside the police investigation, the public was forming its own theories. Fans and critics alike dissected d4vd's music and visuals, noting repeated motifs of secrecy, mortality, and loss. Some speculated that these references might hint at events connected to Celeste. Others dismissed the idea, emphasizing that art often mirrors personal emotions rather than real-life criminal acts. Media reports amplified this discussion, juxtaposing the artist's career trajectory with the ongoing investigation. Tours were canceled, social media accounts scrutinized, and previously lighthearted interactions were now seen under the shadow of suspicion. Despite the pressure, law enforcement remained methodical. According to ABC7, d4vd had not been publicly declared a suspect at this point, though internal discussions reportedly considered him a person of interest. Detectives were also exploring whether others may have been involved, not just in the events leading to Celeste's death, but also in the movement and concealment of her body. The investigation was multi-layered. Officers had to coordinate forensic results, digital evidence, interviews, and public tips while navigating the intense attention of national media and online discourse. Every step required corroboration, verification, and legal oversight. Through it all, Celeste's family endured unimaginable grief. On September 23rd, the medical examiner released her body to her loved ones. Services were held quietly at first, allowing family and close friends to mourn in private. But on October 6th, Celeste was laid to rest at Queen of Heaven Cemetery in Rowland Heights, California, a service attended by those who had followed her story closely. The funeral provided some closure to family and friends, but in the public sphere, the story was far from over. Every new piece of information fueled additional questions, online debates, and heightened scrutiny of those associated with the case. Behind closed doors, law enforcement continued to piece together the puzzle. Every forensic report, every seized device, and every witness interview contributed to the bigger picture, but without the toxicology results, the most critical piece remained missing. The cause and manner of Celeste's death would determine whether the case was treated as a homicide, an accidental death, or a tragedy with no criminal element. And until that report was complete, investigators were essentially navigating a landscape of uncertainty. Even as authorities worked diligently, the lack of a definitive cause left gaps for speculation. Gaps that the public, the media, and online communities rushed to fill. Then came the bombshell. Sources reported that d4vd was now being officially viewed as a suspect in Celeste's death. But the toxicology results, the very data that could confirm how and when she died, were still pending. And without them, there was no concrete timeline, no definitive evidence of criminal intent, and no clarity about the circumstances that led to the concealment of her body. The stage was set for the final chapter. How far would the investigation go, and what truth would finally emerge about Celeste Rivas-Hernandez? For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. By November 2025, the investigation into Celeste's disappearance and death had reached a pivotal moment. Multiple media outlets, including ABC7 Los Angeles, reported that d4vd was now being considered a suspect in the case. This development was significant, but it was not the culmination of the investigation. Far from it. Law enforcement sources confirmed that the LAPD Robbery Homicide Division was officially viewing him in that light, though publicly, no arrest had been made. This distinction mattered. Being named a suspect is different from being charged. Investigators could now dig deeper, examining every scrap of evidence while carefully avoiding leaks that could compromise potential prosecution. Meanwhile, the public was left to parse speculation, rumor, and emerging facts. Even with a suspect in focus, the path to formal charges remained fraught. The LAPD emphasized that critical forensic and toxicology results were still pending, leaving open key questions about cause and manner of death. The Tesla, central to the case, continued to provide physical evidence. Residents had reported seeing the car parked in the Hollywood Hills for weeks before it was towed. Towyard workers recalled a foul odor that prompted an initial inspection, leading to the grim discovery. Investigators found Celeste's remains inside the vehicle's frunk, wrapped in a manner that clearly indicated an attempt at concealment. These facts alone suggested criminal behavior, but without a confirmed cause of death, the investigation had limitations. Could the act of concealment be prosecuted independently, Yes, but proving more serious charges like homicide would depend entirely on the pending forensic reports. Detectives were also focused on technology. GPS logs from the Tesla, phone records, and potentially text message histories could provide insight into who had access to the vehicle and when. Authorities were reportedly following every lead, examining digital and physical trails in painstaking detail. If data were to show that Celeste was in the car while d4vd was driving, or that others helped in moving the vehicle, it could become crucial evidence in establishing criminal culpability. The investigative approach was meticulous, with law enforcement carefully coordinating between multiple departments to ensure nothing was overlooked. Every digital footprint could reveal the sequence of events leading up to her death, and potentially link the suspect directly to the crime. A key piece of digital evidence emerged as investigators scrutinized d4vd's movements. According to sources speaking to news outlets, the investigation uncovered records of a highly suspicious trip. Around spring 2025, d4vd reportedly took a trip in the middle of the night to a remote area of Santa Barbara County and remained there for several hours. Police are now scrutinizing this unexplained excursion, believing the timeline may be linked to the case and potential disposal activities. Beyond forensic and digital evidence, public attention turned to d4vd's music. Fans noticed lyrics and imagery that allegedly mirrored aspects of Celeste's life, including tattoos, intimacy, and even absence. An unreleased track, rumored to be titled Celeste, became the focus of intense scrutiny. Moreover, recurring motifs in his public work amplified the intrigue. To some, it seemed to confirm suspicions. To others, it was simply the dark, symbolic language of a young artist. Regardless, the timing of the music's release, coinciding with Celeste's disappearance and the growing investigation, fueled speculation. This digital and lyrical footprint became a double-edged sword. It informed public perception while potentially complicating legal proceedings. Prosecutors would need to separate artistic interpretation from actionable evidence. The case divided public opinion sharply. Some fans refused to believe that d4vd could be implicated in such a tragedy. Others demanded justice and accountability, emphasizing the severity of Celeste's death and the need for a thorough investigation. Meanwhile, a significant development occurred on the legal front. In October 2025, it was confirmed that d4vd had hired renowned criminal defense lawyer Blair Burke, known for handling high-profile media cases for clients such as Harvey Weinstein, Mel Gibson, and Britney Spears. This move signaled a serious escalation in the legal posture of the artist. Amid hiring high-profile counsel, the narrative around cooperation grew more muddled. While d4vd's representatives initially stated he was fully cooperating with authorities, sources later told outlets like ABC7 and NBC that he was not cooperative and potentially never had been. Furthermore, the singer broke his lease on the Hollywood Hills home, the one near where the Tesla was abandoned and which police had searched, and moved out shortly after the investigation began gaining traction in September 2025. Movers were seen hauling boxes from the property, a move interpreted by some as trying to distance himself from the location. Despite the pressure, law enforcement remained methodical. According to a police source speaking to multiple news outlets, investigators believe d4vd most likely had helped dismembering and disposing of the body. This suggests a complex operation, involving potentially more than one individual in the cover-up. Every day that toxicology results were delayed, every new report or leak, and every lyrical analysis renewed attention and intensified debate. Celeste's death had become more than just a local tragedy. It was a national conversation about accountability, fame, and the blurred lines between public persona and private actions. The details were mounting. A secret trip to a remote location, a high-profile attorney, conflicting reports on cooperation, and the growing belief that others were involved. The case was building a mountain of circumstantial evidence. But one question remained, the one that truly mattered in a court of law, the one that separated concealment from homicide, and the one the public was desperate to know. What evidence, if any, tied David Anthony Burke directly to the act of Celeste Rivas-Hernandez's death itself? The answer lay hidden within the final, long-awaited forensic reports. And as always, you've been watching True Crime Story Vault, where every story is told with facts, empathy, and respect for those who can no longer speak for themselves. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button and comment your thoughts below. Until next time, remember, the truth is never buried.